New Jersey Devils forward Taylor Hall was a healthy scratch last night, prompting all kinds of trade talk and rumors suggesting a deal might be imminent. It looks as though he will be a healthy scratch again tonight, provided he has not yet been traded. Where might he go, and what might a package going back to the Devils look like? We'll discuss all the latest rumors coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we're focusing and zeroing in on Taylor Hall, New Jersey Devils forward, former Hart Trophy winner, one of the top contenders to be traded this season to another NHL contending team, heading into the playoffs as the Devils appear unable to re-sign their star forward. I know there was a lot of talk about re-signing him to a long-term extension during the offseason. Talks never really materialized to getting anything done before the season started. With Taylor Hall being represented by Darren Ferris, many kind of come to the conclusion early on that he was not going to be signing and won't sign anywhere until next offseason. Darren Ferris is notorious for having his clients hold out and wait the teams wait as long as they can, getting the best deal on the table. And he's had many clients in the past even hold out and miss time at the beginning of an NHL season. Taylor Hall himself has also expressed a lot of interest in becoming an unrestricted free agent and going through the process, as he did monitor things very closely when John Tavares did so just not that long ago. Now, with all the rumors floating around, of course, New Jersey was playing Colorado last night. They're now playing Arizona tonight, and they're two of the three teams that have been mentioned in the rumor mill here, amongst others. Now, according to insider Pierre LeBrun and Bob McKenzie, we've heard about 5 or 6 teams are having very active conversations with New Jersey that a deal, not necessarily is imminent to happen right now, but as of last night, there was all kinds of talks going on. Obviously, if he's being a healthy scratch for New Jersey, they want to take precaution that he's not going to get hurt and could, cause the deal to not get done. So that tells us that talks have certainly progressed and are getting close, and they feel like it's in their best interest to sit him out to make sure nothing happens. And there's been a lot of rumors that a deal could get done with Taylor Hall prior to the roster freeze heading into the Christmas holiday season. So I guess where could he end up? The big 3 contenders we've been hearing about is the Avalanche, the Coyotes, as well as the Florida Panthers have emerged as well as a team that Pierre LeBrun has mentioned. And there are other teams as well, but of course, those are the main ones that the rumor mill's been focusing on. But like I said, with insiders mentioning 5 or 6 teams. So the Arizona Coyotes right now kind of appear to have taken the lead and be the front runners. I know last night's game versus the Avalanche, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about him possibly going to the Avalanche any longer. I know there was a lot of the reporters that cover the Avalanche trying to get the inside scoop to see if something might be being worked on, and they were not under the impression that the Avalanche were in any kind of deep trade talks at that point in time. Now, of course, doesn't mean that they wouldn't be. They very well might be keeping things really close to the vest and have a good poker face, but I guess only time will tell. But the Coyotes right now appear to be the front runners. Now, they do have some interesting pieces that might intrigue New Jersey, including their 2020 first round pick. This is a very deep NHL draft coming up this summer, and teams like the Devils, who are rebuilding, will certainly be interested to acquire as many first round picks as they can. It's a deep draft, so like even later in the first round, there's still going to be some pretty impressive talent available on the board. So they do have that to offer. I know they were really high on him, but former 2019 first rounder Victor Soderstrom's a very intriguing defenseman. I know New Jersey has been rumored to want some really young, solid defense prospects. He certainly fits that bill. They have some younger forwards, like maybe a Christian Fischer or Christian Dvorak, something to that effect that might interest them as well. So it's hard to say exactly what a package from the Coyotes would look like, but I would think that New Jersey's going to want future assets and maybe some younger players who can help out as of right now as well. So certainly interesting to see Arizona going forward here. They've had great goaltending this year between Kumper and Ranta. That's kind of the backbone of the team. They have some interesting forwards and defensemen that are playing well for them. Can you imagine a top line featuring both Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel? Some great, a long-time successful forwards there who very well could team up with a guy like Clayton Keller, for example, to form the top trio. Certainly sounds interesting. Arizona is not a team that we're used to seeing in this kind of situation, spending to the cap and, being considered a playoff contender. And, they could possibly become Western Conference or Cup contenders with an addition like Taylor Hall. So only time will tell. But right now, many of the insiders are leaning towards a potential landing spot with the Coyotes as Taylor Hall's landing spot. Now, of course, he has no trade protection as well, so there's no way he can veto a deal here, unlike what we've seen in many other, top players being moved in season near the NHL trade deadline. Now, focusing on the Avalanche for a minute, just because there wasn't a sense of urgency at last night's game versus New Jersey doesn't mean they're not in the mix here. The Avalanche would have a lot of assets that New Jersey would covet. Maybe they don't want to part with it. It's hard to say, but like I said, as far as defense prospects go, they've got a lot of them. They've got Bowen Byram, they've got Connor Timmins, they got some interesting young forwards like an Alex Newhook. They have their first round pick. Then the Avalanche are well positioned to be able to take this on. They have a lot of other interesting young players as well, like a Shane Bowers, Martin Kaut, just to name a few more. New Jersey could get a pretty decent haul out of Colorado, but Joe Sakic's been a pretty, solid GM in that regard, and he typically wins more trades than he loses. So maybe he just doesn't want to part with too much of his young assets there in order to make this happen. The Avalanche are a pretty solid team without Taylor Hall. And, maybe he just doesn't feel like it's worth the risk. It's hard to say, but many insiders have pegged the Avalanche early on as being the favorites. Now, another team that was mentioned a lot before was the Montreal Canadiens, and they're not really being mentioned a lot right now. And there have been some reports indicating that maybe they're not even in the mix at all anymore. It was believed earlier on that Marc Bergevin was very interested in making an addition like Taylor Hall, but just because they're not being mentioned, I would not suggest that they're not involved in some capacity, and you never know. The team that ends up acquiring Taylor Hall may not even end up being a team that's, been talked about a lot. It could be a stealth team that comes in with the last minute and makes a big offer that many NHL insiders didn't see coming. It's certainly a possibility, but the Florida Panthers, like I said, are another team that we've seen insider Pierre LeBrun mention earlier today, as well as a team that's inquired and certainly could be a team that's well positioned as well. I mean, they have a similar situation as well with one of their forwards who is an unrestricted free agent next year that they very well might not be able to retain, and that's forward Mike Hoffman, who's certainly done pretty well since arriving in Florida via San Jose from the Ottawa Senators. Hoffman's a proven goal scorer and somebody who very well might not remain with Florida due to the salary cap constraints there. So it's another interesting player. I'm not sure if New Jersey would necessarily want that back in return unless they could work out a contract extension, then perhaps. But either way, Hoffman is another player with Florida to keep your eye on. I'm not really sure they would want to move him out if they're looking to load up for the playoffs, but they as well have some interesting young players in their system as well, like an Alexei Heponiemi. They've got Henrik Borgstrom. They have a young star goaltender, Spencer Knight, which I wouldn't think they'd want to move, but it certainly would be very attractive to New Jersey for sure. They also have their 2020 first round pick. So they also have some, like I said, some very interesting guys there that very well might prove interesting. Even Owen Tippett as well, who's, more of a proven goal scorer at the junior level, certainly trying to get himself more of an opportunity for the NHL as well. So they have some interesting young prospects to keep your eye on there. So Taylor Hall appears to be close to ending his time with New Jersey. It's difficult to say exactly when a trade gets done. We very well may not see a trade today, may not be tomorrow, but it does look as though that they're going to hold him into the lineup for the foreseeable future, at least on a short-term basis here, as these talks continue and a deal gets closer and closer to being done. But based on what's going on, I would think that a deal is very, very likely to be reached and be completed before the roster freeze for the NHL holiday season coming up here in the not too distant future. So what I'd like to hear from you is, where do you think at this point is the most likely, most logical landing spot for Taylor Hall? He has no trade protection in his contract, so he can't veto a deal. At this point, it looks pretty likely that he's going to be going somewhere as a rental. His agent, Darren Ferris, is over in Sweden. He's not even around right now. Not to say that they couldn't negotiate, through electronic means, but it's certainly a possibility, but many believe at this point that he's going as a rental. No contract's going to be reached. He will be a UFA next year. So whoever's acquiring now is likely not going to be his team for the long haul. Just be for the rest of this year, and then we'll see where he goes. He'll continue to be one of the hot topics around the NHL heading into free agent season next summer. So let me know what your mock trades are. Where do you think he's going? What's a good return for New Jersey? And we can discuss further in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.